Okay, well, we're live now on YouTube. It's just starting. Donna, I'm so honored that you're here. You have an incredible mission. Welcome to the Love Pod. We're so thrilled to have you here in our space, and I just want to open up things and just give you the space to share a little bit about yourself for our audience. And yeah, what is your mission? It's a super important one.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for having me on. My mission is called Sharing Without Shame. It's a community of parents and family members, partners, whoever, who are impacted by a loved one who's in active addiction or early recovery. And so I can tell you a little bit. My journey started with my son.
Hmm.
At the age of 15, he started to experiment. My gut was stirring, didn't know what was
Hmm.
going on, thought it was teenage growing pains. They start to disconnect.
Yeah.
And by the age of 18, things started to unravel. Still couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew something was really wrong.
Hmm.
20 to 25, full-blown nightmare.
Hmm.
And when they tell you this, it's
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
If they're saying I'm having a beer, it's a six pack. And
Hmm.
so I found out at the age of 17, my son was a IV heroin user.
Okay.
And the hardest thing is we're in mourning, we're grieving the loss of our child, even though they're still walking on this earth. And we're
Yeah.
grieving our hopes and our dreams for
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
And in losing them, because this different person shows up, and it took me a long time to understand, I'm
Hmm.
fighting with his addiction, not my beautiful boy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so there were a lot of lessons learned. I was in the fetal position for the first 6 months when I found out what was going on. I didn't know what
Hmm.
to do except blame myself. What did I do wrong? Did I love him enough? Did I treat him differently than his brother? Like it had to be my fault. I was a
Hmm.
stay-at-home mom. And so, all of this just was like this big snowball. It kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And until I hit my enough. And when I hit my enough, it was 2 years. It was in 2006
Hmm.
when one of my clients gave me a book and said, "Read this," and I was like, "I can't read another self-help book."
Hmm.
And she goes, "Okay, go to page." I think it was 132, and it was an emotional scale, and it's 1 to 22, and I was number 22. I
Okay.
was
Wow.
just in despair, grieving. I was depressed. I had all this stuff, and that's not who I am.
Hmm.
And so I started working that. I printed it up, put it on my desk, and every day I would look at it because I was so emotionally ill. I couldn't tell you a feeling. I was so numbed out.
Hmm.
I had to look at this piece of paper every day to understand what I was feeling.
Hmm.
And I would work on vibrating myself up to a higher level. And so today I keep myself between 1 and 7,
Amazing.
joyful to, if you get to number 8, that's where boredom hits. And
Okay.
once the boredom hits, all bets are off that I'm not going to vibrate down and go into being
Hmm.
angry or
Hmm.
jealous or whatever. And the same thing applies to our loved ones when
Wow.
they're in active addiction too.
Wow. I mean, there's so much in there. I mean, this is the conversation of probably several books that we could talk about that,
I
that I feel
have
like have you written some books?
4. Yeah.
You've written 4 books. That's amazing. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
what a rich introduction, Donna. My heart goes out to you. I mean, I am relatively very new parent, and Julie and I are doing our best to be as conscious as we can be.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine. You talked about losing your boy to this addiction, and basically struggling with this other personality. Now you share so much about like your growth through all this, and obviously you started sharing this journey publicly to
Mhm.
to help other families dealing with this. And it sounds like you really hone in on that initial part of whether in active recovery or you're just starting that healing journey. Do you want to share a little bit about your organization, Sharing Without Shame, and how you're actively working today on spreading this mission?
Sure. So, sharing without shame has organically grown over the last, oh boy, since like 2006, really. And I was invited by the state of New Hampshire to go on a recovery mission. I was the only mother invited. Everybody else was in recovery, so I wasn't well received.
Mm,
You're the problem. You remind us of everything we do wrong.
okay.
And they were right when after I sat back and really looked at it like, yeah, they're right. I was a problem. I was part of the problem, not part of the
Mm,
solution. And so, and I started to go to like AA and NA meetings to get an understanding because I wanted to
mm,
see how their brains work. And so I committed to bringing back or starting family support group because when I was going through it in the 1990s, 2000s, early 2000s, I had no support.
mm,
I was on my own. Part of it was my ego. I didn't want to reach out because of the shame. I wanted to keep my
yeah,
secret. And what I learned is we're as sick as that.
yeah,
And so as time went on, I just built this. It was called Family Sharing Without Shame. It was a family support group. And I would have 40 people at a meeting.
wow,
And then another organization heard about me, one of the treatment centers. So they invited me. So I opened up another one there. And I ran that for over 12 years. When COVID hit, of course, everything went away
mm,
and had to figure out now what do I do? So I rebranded during that time and came up with Sharing Without Shame because shame is what keeps us stuck. Shame is what keeps us sick. Shame
yeah,
is what kept me in bed. And so I work nationally, and my goal is to help parents or anybody else who loves somebody in active addiction not go through the emotional
mm,
bankruptcy or the financial bankruptcy like I did.
wow, yeah,
My goal is to help them navigate this in a healthy way, teach them how to have a healthier relationship even when the person is sick and suffering. And
wow,
what does that look like? And so I do private sessions, I have workshops, and I have a secret Facebook, a free page that parents can go and just talk to each other. I post in there occasionally, but basically, my stuff is out there nationally, and I do it all on Zoom. That's one of the greatest gifts from COVID. We all learned how to use Zoom.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we're certainly more connective than ever, and it sounds like you're really connecting with those families and meeting them where they're at when they need you. So
Mhm.
I often wonder, we were talking a little bit before we got on, some of the shared experiences we've had. Like my background is in Indigenous wellness addictions prevention, and I won't go into that story that brought me all there, but you were talking a little bit about, beginning of your journey and kind of opening your perception to some of these deeper understandings within yourself as well.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, like, how does, if you look at Donna from 2006 to now,
Oh.
what would you tell Donna, in terms of the impacts you're having and how you're waking up differently, how you feel differently? Yeah, what would you share? What would you say to her?
I would say you got this. You're going to
Yeah.
be fine. You're going to come out and you're going to like who you are better than you did before. And, you know, it the she'll learn such amazing things and meet such amazing people in this journey
Mm.
if she's open and honest with it and lets go of her shame.
Mm, that's so amazing. I'd like to touch more on the shame because I think that's a really big topic that we'll dive into. Before that, there's one thing that's coming to my heart to share with you. One of the elders I was talking with, they reminded me that, we choose our parents and we choose our journey. I've heard other spiritual mentors that I look up to, like Wayne Dyer, talk about this. Like some of the challenges we get in this lifetime, whether it's from our parents or from our children, it's
Hmm.
meant for our spiritual growth. Is that? Do you have any reflections about that? How that's been playing out in your life?
Yeah, well, so for me, when I hit my enough, I ended up going on a spiritual journey, and it was a very lonely one. And what it did is, we all have some childhood stuff. right? There's a little kid
Hmm.
inside of us that needs to be healed.
Hmm.
Whether we came from the greatest families on earth, I'm a highly sensitive person.
Hmm.
I'm an empath.
Hmm.
So everything was hurtful for me.
Hmm.
And so when you're shamed, oh, you're too sensitive, let it go.
Hmm.
You carry that with you in life thinking you have a character defect.
Hmm.
So what this journey did is unfolded that I have a gift.
Hmm.
That when I do the work that I do, I'm allowed to do it in a compassionate way because I feel their pain.
Hmm.
I know what it feels like to walk in their shoes and to be them. So I think, it just, yeah, it's, it ebbs and flows. There's ups and downs, but we found a way to get to the
Hmm.
point of where we are and who we are, and then we just kind of move on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean so much beauty in what you said there, and that topic of sensitivity and perception of character defect. I think that's a perfect bridge into talking more about shame and sharing without it and letting it go. I was really inspired reading Gabor Mate's book on scattered minds. I've recently realized like no one ever kind of reflected back to me, but I definitely have clear neurodivergence in ADD, and I didn't realize it comes from sensitivity. I've always been extremely sensitive, like to sound and to light, and I used to get a lot of migraines as a child, and realizing that shame is this. It's not like guilt. Guilt can come and go based on behavior, but shame is like this idea that there's something inherently wrong with us. So, do you want to,
Right.
to share more about your perceptions of shame, and maybe even we can start looking at how do we start letting that go and start sharing without it?
Yeah, for me, my shame kept me paralyzed. I couldn't function. I was like, oh my God. I'm gonna back up a minute. I grew up in I'm a baby boomer.
Hmm.
So what we learned from our parents' generation, all this stuff is generational. It's all ancestral, right?
Yeah.
We have stuff from our ancestors. And so my grandparents came from a generation where don't rock the boat, don't don't
Yeah.
don't do anything. My mother grew up with keep your mouth shut, keep
Hmm.
your secrets. You
Hmm.
don't want anyone to know. Make your family look good on the outside. Don't let them know what's going
Hmm.
on the
Hmm.
inside. As growing up in a baby boomer, children should be seen and not heard,
Hmm.
right? So when you look at all that and it kind of keeps piling on you until one person, which was me, said, this doesn't feel good. I'm not going to do this to my children.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm going to stop this stuff. I'm
Yeah.
going to stop this shame and teach them that no matter what, if you're doing the best you can, you're
Hmm.
doing the best you can.
Hmm.
And don't allow that or people's opinions to cause shame. Don't let them put that stuff on you.
Hmm.
We do it all by ourselves. We don't need anyone.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
It's
Yeah.
like when someone body shames you about
Hmm.
your weight. I used to get that. I know all by myself. I've gained weight. I don't need anyone to
Hmm.
shame,
Hmm.
right? And so that's how it is with addiction. When we love
Hmm.
our kids, we have a tendency to shame them,
Yeah.
and then people shame us.
Yeah.
I was at an event, well, not an event. I was at a Senate hearing, and one of the senators kept asking, like, what is the problem? What's the gateway here? And he was asking about cannabis. And one of the attorneys, whom I knew his daughter was using with my son,
Hmm.
said, "Oh, it's bad parenting."
Hmm. Hmm.
Now that's
Interesting.
shameful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So
totally. Yeah.
so it's what people put on us, and then we add to it ourselves, and
Hmm.
it gets messy, and it keeps us really emotionally ill. And
Hmm.
so it's I have my first book is called Peeling the Onion, and that's what
Hmm.
we have to do. We have to peel away
Hmm.
the layers of our pain. And being a sensitive person, as you are and I am, what I've concluded to, and people may think I'm crazy, is a lot of people with a substance use disorder are empaths or empathic, and therefore they self-medicate because they
Hmm.
don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of mentorship that happens in this kind of society. I mean, I agree with Gabor Mate's perspective that this is a sick society and it's not so great to adapt to a society that's sick. So yeah, I think a lot of empaths and all kinds of neurodivergent people do find ways of self-medicating. And it doesn't necessarily need to be extreme addiction, but it comes down to like shopping or
Sure.
food or like anything. You can become that
Computer.
computer, right? Yeah. So I want to circle back because it's come up a couple times, and you talked a little bit about secrecy and shame. Those are related, and you talk about like the level of our secrecy is like really the level of how sick we are, and I think that relates back to the onion, peeling the onion layers. Do you want to share that because it's clear, like this example you gave with a lawyer, that lawyer is holding a secret that's now they're expressing from a place of shame as well. So I think this is all very interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, let's kind of peel the onion.
How to get to the healing piece of it? Is that what you're asking me? I just want
Yeah,
to be
well, like
clear.
I think that relationship between secrets and shame, I think worth it. Maybe you
You- You're frozen.
and so mind blowing to you. For me, it's the first time really looking at it. Oh, is it good?
You are,
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything you said because you
Is
were
it still
frozen.
frozen?
No, now you're
Oh,
not.
okay, pardon me. Okay, great. So, yeah, I was just saying maybe because you're having this conversation actively, sometimes we don't recognize like the importance of our own presence in a room because we're always with ourselves. And this conversation about, sharing without shame and letting go of the secrecy is has probably become normalized in your experience. But I think it's a very novel and important idea. And I'd love to hear more about your conversation on like how you recognize that and now, yeah, leading into the healing and how do you start sharing and going beyond it.
I think it takes a long time to realize that you're riddled with shame. We don't know till we know. And it kind of hits you in the face, you know?
Mm,
And then what do you do with it?
mm,
And so, I mean, I've been doing this, since 2006. It's a
mm,
long time.
mm,
And I'm still a work in progress. For me, as I mentioned, I went on the spiritual journey and I just started undoing the layers and realizing that, as I mentioned earlier, there was a little girl who was emotionally
mm,
wounded. And so I, what happens is, in a nutshell, is I got to go internally and see what was really happening with me. My
mm,
son's addiction made me take a good look at myself. I
mm,
had to unfold myself out of the fetal position and start doing the work. Now, there would be months, especially winters, where I would go back into a deep depression, but I would have like a spiritual awakening so that I could move forward. And
mm,
each time this would happen, I would recognize, like, oh, I'm riddled with shame. Oh, I'm riddled with this. I'm riddled with that. What am I going to do with it? And so I found tools for me that worked for me.
mm,
And so, and for me, writing the books,
mm,
telling people this is what my shame was, and how do we release it? Because no one can put shame on us. We do it to ourselves.
mm, mm, mm,
And if someone says, "Oh, you make me feel this way," no, I don't.
mm,
You're choosing to do it to yourself. You just want to
mm.
blame me for it.
Yeah.
So I had to look at that, and I think it's just really difficult to explain that, it takes time. It's not
Yeah.
going to be like this.
Yeah.
If when people start to identify, like, "Oh, I'm dealing with shame, now what do I do?" Well, I think an emotional scale is a great tool so
Hmm.
that they can start to shift through it, to shed it.
Hmm.
And also reading Brene Brown's books,
Hmm. Hmm.
The Gift of
Yep.
Imperfection, and she has some great books. She everything she does is about shame.
Okay.
So I think it's really just getting to the layers
Hmm.
and being honest with ourselves.
Yeah. It has to start that way, right? It's first
Right.
self-honesty, and then you start being honest with others. I think this is really powerful, and I hear you that it is difficult to articulate some of these subtle experiences that we have on our spiritual journey, as you mentioned. And I mean, you found an amazing outlet in writing books that can then go on to impact other people and create a legacy of conversation. Even amongst the children who are going through the addiction and stuff too. It because there is, I mean, those all those individuals, some of those difficulties they're going through are also like trigger points for their own spiritual journey. When they are willing to come to that point of self honesty, as you talk about. This is so awesome, and you talked a lot about like that family healing process, the ancestral. Have you, in your journey, have you like explored different like healing modalities for that? I understand you're an energy healer as well. What comes to mind for me is like family constellation, stuff like that. Like what has been the most impactful, powerful forms of healing for you?
Well, what saved me was a Reiki session, and because I had lost the gift of smiling, of being
Mm,
happy.
yeah.
We're as happy as our sickest child.
Mm,
And
mm,
so I was miserable internally. So how could I be happy? And so someone had recommended having Reiki, and I did it, and it was like, oh, I have a little bounce back in my step. Oh, this kind of feels good. Oh, my heart's a little lighter. And something took over me. Like I had to learn this.
mm,
And so I kept trying to find people. And every time I signed up for a class, it was like, it doesn't feel right. And I went into my chiropractor's office one day, and this little 4-foot woman comes bouncing by, and God works in funny ways. And I said, are you a Reiki master? I don't, it just came out of my mouth.
mm, mm.
I didn't plan it. And she said, yeah. And I said, will you teach me?
Wow.
And she taught me. And what she did was, I mean, that's where my healing started with
Mm,
her. She pulled out some stuff that was no longer serving me. And it was just mind blowing.
mm,
And so you go, for me, I went through different types of healing. I went to with up at one of the treatment facilities, they would have an outdoor healing circle, and it was with indigenous people. And I first time I ever went there at night by myself.
mm, mm.
And they saged me. I didn't know what
Courage.
the heck was going on,
Mm,
but it was such a beautiful experience. And it was typically always with people in recovery. And then here I am, the
mm,
mom. And, when it would just change something in me.
mm,
And so this one person that did the saging, I got to know him, and I invited him to a one of my family support group meetings. And we had a parent who had lost a child, and we got a prayer shawl. I had a prayer shawl made for her, and we all prayed over her. And
mm,
he came, and he brought in this beautiful uh, feather with all beading done on it, and we passed it, held it to our
mm,
heart, put it
mm.
on our faces, whatever, and just feeling it, right? The
Yeah.
oils from it,
Yeah.
whatever, just was like a soothing, calming
Mm,
effect. And we would pass it around, and anybody who wanted to hold it, touch it, just sit with it, hold space for somebody else, or speak, they could. And it
mm.
was an amazing experience. And so
Wow.
I just kind of put myself out there. These gifts came to me. I didn't go looking for
Mm,
them.
mm, mm.
They just came to me. And it was just amazing because it's not just one thing that's going to help you heal. It's
Yeah.
finding what resonates with you, what speaks to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Wow.
that's, for me, it's a variety of different things.
Yep. Wow, there's so much there, Donna, and I know it's probably just a fragment of the journey that you've gone on. One of the things that really stands out to me, from doing your own inner work with Reiki, and for maybe listeners who don't know what Reiki is, it's that my understanding is Reiki means chi is universal energy, and we have these layers to ourselves that are we have energetic bodies, emotional bodies, and we can get kind of gunk in those areas. So having, doing this work of Reiki is it can be really powerful. But then I noticed this theme for you, and we talked a little bit before about the the importance of like you've gone to several circles where you're really listening to the other side of things. And I think that's really important because I feel like a lot of parents, if there is codependencies or whatever, it's easy to silo and just hang out with other parents that are, getting it, that are affected. But you've actively gone into places where people are recovering. You've gone to AA meetings and NA meetings to understand the minds and hear the hearts of these individuals. So I just want to commend you for that. And I think that's really important, in that work that because you're bridging those two now. So, I mean, yeah. Do you want to explore anything there? Do you want to share any like maybe powerful stories that without, of course, putting anyone that you've worked with on the spot, but I'd imagine you've had a lot of you've seen a lot of miraculous recoveries or whatnot. I would just imagine that you've witnessed in that long of a time working in this realm. Is there anything, any particular examples that you want to share?
Yeah, I'll share one. My husband's family is just riddled with drugs and alcohol. And so for me, it was like, if I didn't marry you, this wouldn't have happened to my beautiful boy.
Mm,
It wasn't a good feeling. So I was
mm,
really angry at him for a long time. And he was really angry at our son. And so I was unconditional love and he was tough love.
mm,
And so the first night when we found out, he told our son to get out. And he took his
mm,
cigarettes and he crumbled them and he put them in the trash. And being, an unhealthy helper, I went in the trash, got my son's cigarettes and took and straightened him out and said, "Take care of one thing at a time, honey. Don't worry, I'll handle him."
mm,
Thankfully, he worked a lot. So our thought process was very different. He had a lot of anger towards his siblings.
mm,
Um, and so one night, so every Friday night, my son was at this one facility. He was in treatment. He was in and out of treatment for six or seven times. Every Friday night, I would go to this AA meeting. I wasn't allowed to talk to him, but I could see him across the room, and that's all I
mm,
needed was to see my boy.
mm, mm. No, please. That's real. Yeah. Thank you.
And so
Yeah. Give yourself a
my
moment,
husband
Donna.
knew if he wanted to see me on a Friday night, he's going
Mm,
to show up at this meeting. So he decided to surprise me one night, and he came in. And when he came in, he sat there, and I look over and he's sobbing because the gentleman
mm,
who's speaking was a person in recovery whose brother had been murdered over a drug deal. And my
mm.
husband's brother had been murdered over a drug deal.
Wow.
And it was that night that my husband changed his thinking
Mm,
about people with a substance use disorder. And
mm.
instead of being angry, he found compassion and love.
Wow.
And he started doing unconditional love with our son
Wow.
with healthy boundaries,
Wow.
mind you.
Wow.
But
Wow. Well,
that was a
healthy.
miracle.
That is a miracle. Wow. Thank you for sharing such a profoundly beautiful, moving story. And I mean, what a beautiful example of transforming tough love into unconditional love. And I love how you contrasted those two. Wow. I feel so much compassion just listening to you, and I see your why is so much clearer to me now in during doing this. Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And I think it's really important to understand that it took me a long time to understand this is that when people are sick and suffering and they're self-medicating to mask their trauma or whatever that little kid that's hurting, they need to be loved more, not less.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as society, kick them to the curb, tough
Hmm.
love.
Hmm.
Well, tough love is telling them, I'm giving up on you. Go
Yeah.
figure it out. And I always kept that olive branch out to our son.
So
Like, no matter
important.
what, I'm here. I got you.
Yeah, a home to go to. I think that's why so many folks end up, on the streets because they don't have that olive branch. They've been, they've been blamed and criticized for their challenge, and Yeah, I mean, there's so many dogmatic beliefs. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. I think we get to. Our society has kind of taken on this arm of punishment. I mean, it starts in probably the household with parenting ideologies, and then in the school system, it's like, you're constantly judged and graded, and then you get into real life, and there's obviously laws. We need healthy boundaries in society, otherwise, there's just anarchy and chaos. But there's, if you do something wrong, you're put into a punitive situation, and that doesn't really allow the healing. Often it can often just compound the problem. So I'm curious, Donna, because you're helping a lot of people who are actively in this or in starting recovery. Are you also looking at like, do you do any talks with, say, conscious parents who are just, like, for you probably heard the pitter patter earlier with our daughter Luciana running around. Like, is there a preventative aspect in your teachings as well, and in maybe some of your books? Maybe this is a good time to maybe talk about. You said you wrote 4 books. Maybe talk about how what those are, and where
Yeah.
people can find them as well.
Yeah. So my first book was called Peeling the Onion, and I'll tell you a quick story. When I wrote it, after I wrote it, I used to just kind of let spirit guide me. Um, and so when it was done, I showed it to my son, who was in recovery at the time, or still is. By the way, he's over 17 years in recovery, and he's a miracle. And and he looked at me and he
Um,
goes, "Who the hell do you think's going to read that?" And
mm,
I thought, "Oh, he's right." And I ripped up the manuscript, threw it away, blah blah blah. A couple years later, I was out speaking at our local hospital to a parents' night, and this mom said to me, "You ought to write a book." And I said, "I did, but I ripped it up." Then I was thinking, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, funny how things work. I was cleaning out my computer one day, and what pops up but the manuscript for Peeling the
oh
Onion.
wow.
And I looked at it
Okay.
and I said, "Well, this isn't my story to tell. I'm telling my son's story. That's not mine to tell. I have to tell my story." I
Mm-hmm.
rewrote it. And so Peeling the Onion is about my pain, what I
Okay.
learned and how I healed. And
Wow.
then from there, every day I used to write a just for today. I have a Facebook page that's open to the public, and I would just do it just for today every day. I did it for a
Mm.
year, and then I decided, oh, that's a book. So I put that
Yeah.
into a book called Just for
Amazing.
Today.
Amazing.
And then last fall, I wrote Sharing Without Shame and Healing Without Shame, which is a journal for the Sharing Without Shame.
Okay.
Sharing Without Shame has six parents who talk about how they navigated their loved one's addiction, and
Mm.
six people in recovery, how they navigate their pathway to recovery. And then there's some coping skills, some
Mm-hmm.
ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and again, Healing Without Shame is the journal. One of the things I do with the parents, and I think this is really important, is when their teen or adult child, especially their adult children, are living with them,
Mm-hmm.
because a 60-year-old is somebody's child, right? A
Mm-hmm.
90-year-old is
Yeah,
somebody's child.
totally.
So it doesn't matter how old, but there's people still living under the roof of their elderly parents,
Yep.
taking advantage. And so I have a family agreement,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a three strikes you're out policy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it clearly defines how we're going to live together, and what the consequences are. So if I do a random drug test and it is positive for drugs or alcohol, here you can either go to treatment, or, and they decide what the or is.
Mm-hmm.
So you give two suggestions, and they choose which it is. So then they can't throw it in your
Mm.
face. Well, you made me do it. No, you
That's
chose.
wise.
Yeah. And you did have that for three times. On the third strike, it's like, okay, you can't live here anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can help you. In New Hampshire, we have a homeless shelter that's a pretty nice shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll make arrangements for you to go there. It's $70 a week, and you
Mm-hmm.
can live there or go to treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to give one that's a little bit of, a little pain point
Yeah.
to it
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
little action, or or you have to move out because we can't live like this anymore. So I find
Yeah.
that very
Yeah.
beneficial. And the other thing, it's really important for parents to understand in many states, if you have an adult child and they have mail coming to your house or their license is linked to your address, you can't evict them.
Mm,
So
mm.
in this family agreement, I talk about an ejection. You can eject your child because in this contract, you state that they are a guest
Okay.
or a
Okay.
tenant, so you get to figure out how they do it. And it clearly states it, and it gives them, then they can go look up the laws in their state, but
Yeah.
it gives them a way of trying to work with their loved one,
Yeah.
of planting seeds,
Hmm.
but it also protects their interest, right?
Yeah,
It
that's
also,
important.
yeah.
Yeah, when was working with Indigenous seniors, I was running a program and then leading a team for a while. And I saw a lot of that kind of abuse, especially when, like here up north of you folks, we had residential schools in Canada. They had similar things in the States and other places, but that's what they were called here. And, there was a lot of restitution that was given to seniors. And I was there witnessing that, a lot of these seniors who are now in their 80s, 70s, 80s, maybe even 90s, they were getting these checks, and then the vultures would come, their children or nieces and nephews that had addictions problems would like swarm around them, and they just wanted to be loved because they were, they had pain. So, like
Sure.
within a month, their monies would gone, or they would end up in a worse position. I sadly noticed that too often, and I feel it like it was just like so those you've sounds like you've really have outlined a path for assisting in creating really healthy boundaries that
Mhm.
are honoring and don't and kind of preventative of those codependency relationships that can form and enable the continuation of addiction. So that's
Mhm.
awesome, Donna. I really appreciate that you've done that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean we've shared so much. I'm wondering what is your what's your higher vision for the future for you, but also for like you mentioned your community in New Hampshire, all these things. What's your higher vision, maybe, or even for the world? Would you like to share about your higher vision?
I'm just letting this all happen organically. I think what I find if I have a deadline or I'm going to do this, I get myself so caught up in it, then I end up getting stuck.
Mm, mm,
So I've decided I'm on sticking myself, and whatever happens, happens,
mm.
and I'm just going with the flow. You know, um, hopefully I continue to help more and more parents, but it's hard for them to reach out.
Yeah,
That's an issue. But if I could go global with this,
yeah,
that'd be fabulous.
wonderful.
But God has a plan for me,
Yeah,
and my God is a universal energy.
yeah,
I just choose to say the name God.
yeah, of course.
Um,
It's my brain works
it's
with
a plan.
acronyms. Yeah, I agree. There is a mastermind, and I when I think of vision, I don't think so much about goal attainment. I mean, our society's so focused on achievement and goals and all that thing, and I don't think there's anything wrong with goals, but I love that you're trusting and surrendering to that journey and attuning to that energy. It's funny you mentioned the word flow. My brain works a lot with words and acronyms. You can see it all over the place if you tune into what I'm doing and writing and sharing. But the flow to me is Father love omni well. So when we know that Father's love is this omni well, it's ever present within and around us, and within all of those that we encounter, even the ones that are struggling. I feel like we can kind of find peace in trusting that there is a plan, not only for us, but for the larger of all of creation, and that we're never abandoned, no matter how many barriers we might put up, no matter how much armor we might put on, or ways that we numb ourselves. Like eventually that truth, that underlying love that's there, that's why our we've named Lightheart Vision as love, is because that's, to me and Julia, that's our perception that the truth of existence is this underlying reality of love. So I love that you're trusting that
Mm,
and also being an active conduit and helper of that. It's
yeah.
so needed in these times. So thank you for being that.
And the thing is, everybody's looking for love.
Yeah.
People with substance use disorder, and even whether you have it or not, how many people really don't love themselves
Hmm.
because they're so wounded souls.
Yeah.
And that's what all of this is really about. It's teaching each other how to love each ourselves.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when I can try to control things, I'm living in fear.
Hmm.
When I
Hmm.
can just let it go and hand it over and go, take the wheel,
Yeah.
go ahead. I'll follow. You tell me what you want me to do. I
Yeah.
used to do this thing before I went into a meeting. I used to ask my God to walk in first and show
Hmm.
me the
Hmm.
way, and
Beautiful.
just whatever happened was going to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, because if I plan it and I'm uptight about it, that's my fear coming out,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that doesn't feel good.
That's so important. I was listening to a woman who teaches about conscious intimacy and relationships. Her name is Esther Patel, and she said, if you look back even, 50, 100 years ago, like this concept of soulmate, it was understood that it's your relationship with God, or with your creator, however you want to say it, Allah, anything. Like it's your relationship with that source of beingness, and the fundamental source. That's the fundamental relationship because that's also the interconnection of all your other relationships. And I really admired that. And uh, I just want to circle back and kind of connect some of the dots you said because I think this is a really important conversation and some contemplation for our listeners is and for ourselves too is
Mhm.
you talked about self-honesty having to start with yourself and also that idea that self-love, that source of love lives within us. So looking within is really, and you talk about that as the beginning of your spiritual journey. And there's one other acronym I got to share with you because it was inspired to me a couple of years ago. The first time I saw an acronym for fear was in Neil Donald Walsh's books on conversation with God. It's become. I think people don't even know where it came from, but I think that's the source. Is it's false evidence appearing real. And then I
Yep.
think years later, I think it was Kanye or something said, face everything and rise. And I thought that's cool too. But these are very like, so there's like looking at the truth and the illusion. Then there's like standing up to it. And for me, a lot of the work that I found is helpful in how I can guide others and help them clarify and embody their higher vision is an active somatic inquiry process. And a big part of that is exactly we talk about those that emotional scale of gradation. So the acronym for that came to me is feel everything and remember. And what you remember is I think unique for each of us, but it's remember who we really are. Remember that God is there and you can ask God to go in front of the room. However is helpful, but that feeling piece I think is so important. And that's the courageous leap that so many people who are struggling with addiction need to take
Mm,
on, right?
right. Yeah. And here's another one. Hope. Hold on. Pain ends.
Ah, I like that, Donna. Thank you. You're adding to my tool belt. Amazing.
And it's the truth. That's what we have to hold on to our hope when our loved ones are sick and suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on, pain ends. I love that, Donna. I feel a kindred, soul family vibe from you. I really appreciate meeting you. And like, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? We obviously want to know where to find your things, and we'll include links and all that in the description in the YouTube video, and
Mhm.
also a link, yeah, people can like and follow and subscribe you. And you mentioned a Facebook page. What else would you like to share with our audience?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.sharingwithoutshame.com. I'm also on Substack. I write quite a bit of content.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. I just do Facebook. I'm not really a huge social media person. I'm a little technically challenged.
Okay.
So Facebook, website, Substack. Um, I have a VA. I think she does some Instagram maybe for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
So
Nice.
that, um, but I think it's really important for parents and loved ones or anybody who's dealing with addiction to really, I mean, hold on to your hope because you never to know. But
Mm,
we all have to surrender
yeah.
to a power greater than us.
Yeah.
And I had to, there came a time and it was one of the most painful days where I handed my son over to a power greater than me through
Mm,
meditation. And I
mm,
saw God's hands come and take my child away.
beautiful.
Because I think it's important for us to all understand, and I fought this, but my child is a gift. He's not
Mm,
mine.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm a, I'm a vehicle in which he came, right?
Yeah.
I was allowed that gift. And so, he gets to choose his journey, and it's important to understand that if my son decided, I don't want to be sober, I don't want recovery, I love this lifestyle, I have to honor that. I
Mm,
have to respect that
yeah.
and then figure out how I can be in his life, how to
Mm,
have a healthier relationship with an unhealthy person,
mm.
right? We all
Wow.
have options and
Yeah.
there's always solutions.
Yeah.
And it's putting it all together. And
Wow. I just think that's, what so many folks need to hear. And I can only imagine, and I've witnessed it, in different ways with some of my friends and things. But when the parent is doing their inner work, Dr. Shafali talks about this conscious parenting. Like it's called parenting because you're parenting yourself while your
yeah,
child is, they're reflecting to you your spiritual growth where you're at. But in your approach and the way you articulated that so beautifully, Donna, is you keep an open door and you just accept and approve of your child and honor their individual sovereignty. Like they are also a spiritual being having their own unique spiritual experience. And when you can let go of your own judgment and stuff, at least, you talked about that olive branch. At least they know they have a safe place to come when they're ready. And I feel like so
yeah.
many so many children don't have that. So thank you for empowering parents with your awesome perspective and paradigm in that. I think that's so important.
Oh, thank you. Thank
There's one other thing I want to share. I haven't really been actively talking about this, but I'm going to be sharing more. But I have found a place where I am not a fan of social media. You can tell from even if you look at my Facebook. I do when I do post, it's like heartfelt stuff, and then I feel like it's like a couple comment or a couple likes and like no comments. I'm like, what's going on? But I found a place where that I believe is what the internet was originally intended to be, and communities are gathering, and it's such a beautiful space that I just feel like I want to be an ambassador and promote it as much as I can because there's no ads. It's all about authentic engagement, and people focusing on what their interests are. And it's called School, Skool. It's founded by Sam Ovens and Alex Hormozy. And there's another gentleman, escapes my name, but I'll put a link and I'll share with you what's beautiful about it is it's a place where we are encouraged to all grow together in abundance, in connection, in whatnot. There's affiliate kind of opportunities woven all throughout school. Like I'll send with you a link, and if you start a community there, it'll help me. Like there's a 40% affiliate that Schoolers has for people who start communities, and I think that it's such a powerful place because I've been maybe on there a little bit too much the last few days, but I've met some of the most astounding people. And what it is people are focusing on what their passions are, and they're going and actually engaging in spaces. And the whole place is gamified to encourage authentic engagement, and it's a beautiful space. So I could see you having a thriving audience, connecting with conscious parents, finding people who are struggling with the things you need. So that's my pitch. I'm obviously not a sponsored
thank
or anything, but I really like authentically have found like wow, it's the first time I've been on any social media. I would call it more interest media. I think we're in a new
Yeah,
era of that where I feel
yeah,
like empowered after being on it. I don't feel drained and like oh what do and I always felt that in some of the other platforms, and I won't name them all, but we know what they are. So
yeah, right.
I will share that with you because, and for our viewers too, I'll put in a link because it to me is a place. It's like we are so hungry for community, and you are such a powerful example of that. Like you've been doing this work for so long, more people need to know about you. You
Thank you.
absolutely can have worldwide impacts. I know you've already left a legacy in just writing books, and that's going to continue to grow as you continue to grow and share your mission. So thank you so much, Donna, for what you're doing. Really appreciate it. Any last words for our audience today?
I think basically just hold on to your hope because you never know when the miracle's going to happen.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you.
All right. Well, from my heart to yours, have a wonderful rest of your day. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in and blessings to all of you and your families. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. So I'm just